Hi everybody, welcome to the INclusiverse podcast. I'm your host, Nick Hamilton. Alongside me is Khalida and our newest and latest guest, Ryan Freebury. Today, our episode is going to cover everything men's mental health, which I think is absolutely paramount for any business, any person listening. So Ryan, it's great to have you here to share your experiences.
Nice to be here, mate.
So Ryan, obviously, men's mental health, especially being a man myself, I feel like men are under a lot of scrutiny when it comes to trying to be themselves, trying to be a strong man for pretty much everybody. Got to be a strong parent, you got to be a strong father, a strong son, or someone that really supports pretty much everybody. What is your take on it, and how important is mental health to you?
I think it's like most things where you appreciate it more depending on the times when it hasn't been where you'd want it to be. You know, it's like if you cut your finger and you can't hold something the right way, you notice, how much easier it is to hold something when you haven't done that. I think obviously that's mental health in general, whoever you are. But I think for men, and I don't know if it's specific to the UK and our kind of old, sort of John Bull attitude of everyone being all like stiff upper lip and all this kind of stuff, but there's a lot of pressure to be a certain way. That's why we try and get rid of phrases like, man up and chin up and all these kind of things as well. But yeah, I think a lot of it depends on your family and what you've been passed on to. There's roles you have to live up to in terms of, let's say there was no father figure in a family's life. I think some people feel they have to step up and fill that gap because of things they've maybe seen in other families. There's a thousand things I probably just opened there, but
And what sort of made you excited to want to be a part of this episode?
You can always learn more. Every day's a school day. I'm a big believer in that phrase. And I think seeing any kind of conversation where people can lean into what you're saying and understand is important. Likewise, there's big parts of it where people, it's to do with music, this. So somebody would say to you, don't listen to a sad song if you're feeling sad. So it'll make it worse. Whereas somebody will say to you, actually, it's quite nice to hear somebody who's felt like you felt.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what's important about conversations like this, that you can go, actually, I've heard a lot of things that are to do with male mental health, but I'm a father of a child and I don't understand this person's point of view. So I think the tapestry of things that we throw out there and speak about are kind of important to give people more chance to, tune in.
And then I guess for you then, Ryan, is talk us through kind of your journey of your kind of mental health and, some of the things that you've dealt with.
So as we've not got the same time it takes to read Lord of the Rings or something like that, I will try and keep this as minimal as I can. So I grew up in Skegness, and as a kid my mum had probably seen in me quite a lot of I wasn't scared, I wasn't shy. If there'd be things where I'd get up and start stomping around on the stage as a little toddler, and it was kind of like, oh God, we can, he could be good on TV and stuff. So I had a lot of opportunities on various TV shows and stuff in the 80s, which from where I'm from, no one did. I think there was a Ray Clements, a former England goalkeeper, and that was about it, who'd ever really come from there. So seeing people who you knew at school or stuff like that, doing stuff like that was quite different. And you come back and it was kind of bizarre in a couple of ways. And I don't mean this in a funny way as it might sound, but the little girls, when you're about 8 or 9, they wanted to kind of kiss you and chase you. And the little boys wanted to hit you because you were doing something that, whether it's through jealousy or whether it's through whatever reasons it may be, it made me feel really don't look too good or talk too wise, as the poem says, so whereas a lot of people may want to go, wow, check out this stuff I did, or tell you about, I went to the Natural History Museum and I saw dinosaurs. I remember telling some kid and he went, you're lying. Because you've got to remember about the 80s, it was a good time for people with knowledge and a bad time, because if I said to you the capital of this country is this, there was no Wikipedia, there was no checking it. So either you believed that I knew everything, or you just thought I was the liar in the town, Yeah. So coming back with these stories of what it was like I kept them all inside myself quite a lot, because I didn't want to look different or be different to anybody else, So I've said to people in CBT or therapy stuff since, like, well, that's good because it kept my feet on the ground. And they've said, actually, no, that's probably not a good way of looking at that, because you were a kid who was scared to express themselves, or, you had an outgoingness to you, which that's probably not the right phrase, but you were told by society, like silly things. Like I was a house captain of my house at school when I was about 10, and I had my jumper and this red badge. I was Wyvern House, which is, I think, a female dragon if you look at your heraldry and stuff. And I was so proud of this little red badge. It meant everything to me. and somebody took the jumper and threw it over a hedge, and I never saw it again. And it's like silly things like that to them was hilarious, but to me was kind of like quite devastating. So
Did you get a new jumper?
didn't get a new jumper or a new badge actually. So if any of you find that in the Skegness area, it will look pretty awful around about now. It's about 30 years old, but it's yeah. And what I found out years later was that potentially there was issues as I got older, where to do with abandonment or to do with people. My own standards on myself was I was a musician later on and trying to write music or where I thought I should be and what I should do. And it came to my attention that maybe there's this thing where you've been told quite a lot that you have the ability to do this or you could be this. But at the same time, that being told you're going to be something all the time sets a standard within yourself, which
You need to become that.
partners have said to me, friends have said to me, like, Jesus, man, you've got all this. Why are you still trying to push for that? And I never really knew where it came from, but I think that's a sort of shortened version of the first half before you get to adulthood and other things happen.
Yeah, I mean, I feel mental health is obviously super important. Not going into myself, but my belief is that life is 90% mental and 10% physical. Me with the physical condition, I realize it doesn't matter how physically fit and strong you are, even the strongest men, they look super strong. Like you can't knock them over, like they're a rock, like they're a mountain. But actually, men can be really fragile, and they just haven't been given the opportunity to be vulnerable and just maybe say to themselves, I'm not okay today. Because as I said when we first started this episode, I feel like men have to always be strong. They can never show any sign of weakness, because also men have to be cool, and they have to be this and they have to be that. Did you feel at any point in your life where you had to almost come across in a different way than you truly wanted to, in terms of your authentic self?
I think in some ways maybe as a kid on TV I wasn't probably being authentic, just because I had the ability to be put on a wig and pretend. This is going to be an old reference. I was in Brother Beyond or Wham or something like that, or whatever it may have been, dancing with Michaela Strachan on a CGI green screen, and some other kids would find that horrific. It wasn't always kind of particularly where I wanted to be, but at the same time I was seeing things that I wouldn't have seen if I was still in Frisney Dykes in Lincolnshire or Spilsby or places no one's ever really heard of. So there was opportunities that were great about it, but I think in terms of what you had to be, I don't know, does anyone know their authenticity at 8 or 9? I mean, it's very important to what you become at 42, which I am now. But it's almost like youth is the worst thing you can have when you're young in some ways, because I feel like I've thrown you all over the shop.
No, not
I apologise.
Kally, do you have a question?
Yeah, I think that it's, so as somebody, I'm not a man, but as somebody that has suffered from mental health significantly through previous relationships with parents, and you only see it later on in life when you think, well, why am I behaving in this way towards somebody else? And then you think back on your therapy sessions, you go, oh my goodness, it's because I've experienced this. And I've seen like the way I behave with like ex-partners, and I've like seen my parents behave in the same way. So it's like that learned behavior. I guess from my perspective, I want to kind of find out more about how that triggering and how that kind of has then portrayed in your adult life. So talk to me a little bit through your kind of mental health more towards, into adulthood and then into your career.
So when I went to, I think it's when I went to university, so I was about 1999, I was about 18. And the way I manifested that at university, I had really loving friends who were still some of my best friends to this day. We're all going down the lead mill in Sheffield, it's 60 pence a bottle of beer, let's go out, let's go and dance to some indie. And I'd just sit in my room and go, I'm not coming. Oh, come on. Oh, no, I don't want to come. I wanted to go. Everything in me wanted to go. But I was just doing it to hurt me. It was like a self-harm, I would remove myself, which I guess looking back, maybe I think, was I being dramatic? Was I trying to... what I probably needed, if I could speak to me then, was somebody to go, are you okay, mate? Do you need someone to have a chat with you for 2 minutes? But obviously, and this isn't a slight on my friends or anything, but they're 18, 19 at uni having a good time. So I used to just sit myself there and just hate myself for it, And I do that, and I have done that for a long time, where it's kind of my version of going, do you know what you really want to do right now is this? but you're going to do this. It's like it's like the angel and the devil thing, in a sense, you know. And it was, you know, grandparents died and God knows what. And it just, you know, we all go through these things in different ways. And that's not a legitimization because it still hurt me. You know, I've got something called Crohn's, which I've had sort of major operations and stuff with. And I said to doctors, like, I just try not to moan because I can still move and talk. And
yeah, but it's okay for you to moan about things.
They said to me, it's relative for you. You didn't have Crohn's disease. You didn't need to watch everything you ate because you'd be on the toilet for 7 hours. You are allowed to. But yeah, maybe that, I don't know if that's a male thing or an upbringing thing where I was kind of like, you can't moan about it, you know?
Yeah, I would say I'm in the same place. I've always been a person to not bring my baggage and put it on other people. And I'm starting to realize now that trying to internalize that is actually a negative for me moving forward. It doesn't mean that I need to go around and try and make everybody sorry for me and try and put all of my weight on everyone else. But I think acknowledging that you're struggling with certain things and it's okay to speak out about it is super important. A question from me to you would be, did you get to a point, and when did you get, if you did, when did you get to this point where you felt you needed to seek help? Have you sought help? Have you gone to therapy? Have you been a part of any therapy sessions or any programs, etc.?
I think it was maybe sort of mid 2010s, whatever we call that part of time, where I went to get CBT because I was really in love with somebody, but I felt like I was kind of like crushing myself with my paranoia. It came out of nowhere, not based upon, you know, not like I found a letter somewhere with something on, or I found some reasons for anything, but I was just so scared of losing something that I think was good that I crushed it, in essence, which is quite ugly in lots of ways, but not uncommon, unfortunately.
Absolutely not.
But so I wanted to know the reasons why. Now at that point, I thought CBT would be someone would speak to me and rummage around in my head for 10 sessions, and they go, "Oh, there we go. That wire was loose. Where you go, happy boy." But it's not like that. Oh, I felt like I'd been interrogated for 10 hours. Maybe learned a few things about my mum and my dad and me and the way that humans were, but I kind of felt ultimately bereft. I felt like it was all about, in the nicest way possible, someone was just saying to me, "Are you going to survive this week?" That's what it felt like every time.
Ouch.
So I almost used to start, you know, 'cause you have to do your scores and God knows what. And I was honest, but she was like, "They're still really quite bad." And you'd be like, "Yeah, well, that's how it is." Not for drama reasons, but I found I was better when someone was harder with me. I found when somebody actually sort of said to me, "Oh, how's this week? Oh, my girlfriend's gone on holiday with her friends." Okay, so we're going to be all right about that, are we? And it was probably not clinically what most people would ask you to do, but I was better with that. I was like, yeah, actually. Because we're all different creatures. You know, you were talking about animals earlier on. Some dogs will be like, "Give me a good scrunch," and others will be like, "Don't go near me," you know? So there's that element as well. But I think ultimately the last thing I did was last year I had a little top-up of talking therapy. And weirdly, I found that it was something I'd come to realization within it. It was about how we can all feel about losing people again. It all seems to be this weird loss thing with me. And I just thought, you know what, we all probably see people that we think are potentially a threat to things, or maybe you don't, but it's how you react. It's a bit like anything. Things are going to happen to all three of us, everybody in this room. And it's how you react to the next bit or how you do it. But unfortunately, that's a skill that's needed from either learning, experience, seeing it in other people. And I you know, I'm far from the finished article, and none of us really are. But my biggest one is that when you think of things, I don't know if you guys have had this as well, but things that you think, if the X happens, I can't handle Y and Z. Oh my God, wouldn't it be terrible if this happens?
You make up scenarios, right?
Yeah. And it's an overthinking thing. And you think, oh, well, I wouldn't be able to do that. And so for me, it was when we had Clementine in the middle of the pandemic, and I remember speaking to a friend, and things weren't great with me and her mum, and I was just like, God, she's only 2 months old. Imagine if she left. That would be the worst. What would I do? And she left. And then it was Christmas on my own. And then I had my 40th and New Year's on my own, and I got COVID. And if you'd have told me before that, there's no way I'm surviving that.
So what? How did you survive that?
Well,
what did you do? Did you use any techniques? Did you talk to yourself? Was it self-talk? Did you give yourself time? What was it? What's your advice would be that anybody that was going through that sort of moment, that time, what would you give to them?
So one of them was, this is an unfortunate thing. So this is past experience, right? So if I hadn't lived the life I lived, I don't think I'd have got through it, because there'd been times where I'd split up with somebody and my father'd run me, "How are you?" And I said, my exact words were, "I'm just wondering how long the 12:20 Southampton would take to to kill me, which is an awful thing to say to your parent, but maybe it's a cry for help. I don't know the reasons why. And his words were quite strong of like, well, you know, that's really selfish. It was what he said to me, and it sounds quite harsh in lots of ways, but it stopped. And I thought, while he's alive, I can never do anything to me, because the sadness it would bring my father to, might sound arrogant in some ways, but to lose me would be something I don't want to give to him. And then when Clemmy was born, even though she was out of my life within 2 months in a sense of what I'd planned, there's no way I'm leaving that kid without the knowledge of the family and the person and the things that I've been longing to hold that little hand and do. However painful it is to travel to pick up a baby that doesn't speak, it's 2 months old, and walk up and down a seafront for 1 hour on your own in the place you're about to buy a house with somebody, it's worth it when last week I'm singing a song called We're Tapping Our Feet, making it up on the spot, and my girlfriend's dancing and my 3-year-old's dancing, and we're happy. And that's where it really nearly chokes me and just goes, it's a line from the poem, hold on when there's nothing in you except the will which says to you, hold on. And that's, my dad is by no means a philosopher, he's a carpenter from Nottingham, but one of the things that's lived with me that he said was, while you've got life, you've got a chance. And the amount of people I've passed that on to who've approached me through football stuff I do on social media and things, who've gone, can't do this anymore, I've just said, DM me, talk to me. And I always start with that, because whether you feel irrelevant or whatever it may be, or not macho enough, or you haven't got big enough muscles, or you're not being what your dad or Uncle Jeff thought you should be, while you've got life, you've got a chance. And that's the one that gets through me all the time.
Amazing, right? That's so powerful.
Definitely. So some really compelling things, Nic, as you've said. I think just off the back of this, just a couple of stats that we have here is that kind of, did you know that only 15% of men have actually taken time off due to mental health, compared to the 40% for physical illness? So it's not saying that men don't suffer, it's that men suffer in silence.
Yeah, and I think that's down to potential shame, and not speaking out about problems, and it all goes down back to the point that I was making earlier. I feel men have to be this macho, strong, constantly all the time, and feeling shame or sadness, the fact they're sort of upset or they're struggling at certain points. It's a really difficult moment for them to actually even be open to asking for help. There's a lot of men out there that don't ask for help at all, and even though they want to, they shy away from it. So Ryan, what would your advice be for if you're in your everyday working life and you were struggling, if you didn't feel too great today, today's a bad day. I always say to myself, it's actually okay not to be okay sometimes. So let's say you're not feeling okay today, but you're at work. What would your advice be to others feeling the same, to what they should do throughout their day to make themselves feel better?
I think a lot of times in my life, I thought I didn't need anyone, or I'll show them. Bloody mindedness, and that's a very male thing. I mean, head down and be all kind of like this, because I'm one man is an island and all that kind of stuff, But in terms of our job, now I've got a manager in my team who probably wishes I didn't always have his number, but I do like to, just say, just feeling a bit this one today, feeling a bit like that, always checks in, how's things. And I have to tell a story as well really quickly about something that happened yesterday. So I saw a guy who I've worked with on and off in our company for about 4 or 5 years, and I just said hello as we swapped, going over the the bit where you put your tag your card. And then an hour later, I was just walking on the corridor. He said, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah." Anyway, do you want to go for a walk? And I've never had this happen ever. And I went, "Yeah, I think I do." And then I'm walking out, and as we walked out, I was thinking, do I just go? Even then, I'm thinking of ways of peeling it back a bit. And I thought, no, you've rubbed the lamp. Yeah. The genie's about to come out. So I was just really honest, and maybe a few little backtracks we do, which isn't that bad, or but I know I should be looking at it this way. The self-apologetic thing that we do. And I just, at the end, I just said, just thanks, man. I said that was, and in my head, I can hear maybe ex-relationships where it's like, you never ask about my day, so I'm going, and how are you? Yeah. And right now I just needed that, and that made me really smile about not only that person but also society, that some messages, have they always been like that? I don't know, but it made a massive difference to my day. It got me through the second half of that day, and all I could offer them was a spare cookie that I had available, and they didn't want it. But it was that was quite a nice moment, really.
So I think the key point there is for others to have empathy and ask, are you okay? I feel exactly the same.
You've got to be brave with that, though, because let's say there is somebody, let's say you're the kind of nature that really wants to help people and look out for them, which most of us I think are, and I'm sort of sat like this and like really staring, and I know I can look quite peed off, for want of a better word. I just want to see if they're okay, but you don't want them to bark your head off or be angry. And angriness, especially in men, this is a real male one, I think, is lashing out. Or when you see those people who maybe as kids they break a toy or whatever they do, or they're a bit physical and a bit rough and tumble with it, or F off this or whatever you might do. It's often an anger which is misplaced from somewhere else, and men can be quite bashy, or why did that guy hit that guy? Because back home everything's terrible, and he's got no way to say it other than with his fists and stuff. So I think there's different ways that it's hard for people to approach. I don't know if you've seen the advert that's been doing the rounds with the Norwich City thing, which has been absolutely massive for me. If you've not seen it, you should check it out on LinkedIn or YouTube. It's just two Norwich City fans at a game. One is clearly very down in terms of the way they are, and the other one's very chirpy. And there's quite a powerful message at the end about which one was actually suffering from something. So that's another king message of that guy's going to disappear at the end of this. He won't be there because of the situation. And it really, really hits. So how would you know? If we're here like this and we seem like we're all...
Yeah, you don't know.
Would you ask me,
Well, we briefly mentioned him before we started recording the podcast, but look at Robin Williams.
Exactly.
The most chirpiest, upbeat. There was like an interview that he did just a few weeks before, he took his own life, and you would never have known.
No.
Never have known that man was suffering.
So, but I don't think it's realistic for us to spend, because of things like time, deadlines. I've left the kettle on. It could be anything trivial or really serious, where you're going to walk around and go, are you all right today? Are you okay today? Which realistically, that devalues it. So that person who reached out to me yesterday was powerful because it had never happened. Never in my life before. Maybe a mate. All right, mate, how you doing? But a stranger, in a sense, like that. But imagine, it wouldn't have the same power, and would you want to talk if you did it to everyone? So I think this isn't really an answer. How do we do it where it has the power that it's special? I've took time to ask you, Nic, or ask you, Kally, but it's not just the everyday. And that's the difficulty.
Yeah, because you can call someone up and go, hey, you all right? But you're not actually asking, are you all right? It's just a conversation starter.
Yeah.
But there are times where you need someone that says, no, how are you?
Yeah.
How are you today? How are you feeling today? And I think the important part is listening. I hate it when people ask me a question and then their eyes wander, or because I'm like,
lip service, yeah.
You don't really care about what I'm about to say. But no, it's really, really powerful stuff, Ryan. Thank you for sharing. My last question, and I know this podcast episode is maybe going a little bit longer than usual. What's your advice to parents that are struggling with mental health on their own, to continue being strong for their children, even when they don't actually feel strong or mentally strong in the moment?
For me, I'll just say what works for me is that the times when I've been at the lowest, or felt bad for Clemmy that she didn't, when she was 2 months old and we split, I thought, God, the questions I'm going to get down the road of, you see it in other people we've met, probably as friends, who are like, God, they just split when I was 2 months. I wasn't enough to keep them together and stuff. Whereas realistically, a lot of families are actually better that way. It could end up that, I'm with somebody else and her mum is, and it's happier than the war it could have been. And there's times I looked at her and felt guilty of, like, could I have done more? Could I have done this? Could I have? But I've ultimately gone, she's happy right now. That's a happy kid. That's a kid who's not rude to people. There's a time when I've come in and hit my knee. Are you okay, Dada? No, she cares. She's caring, and she's considerate, and she's intelligent, and she's interested. So as far as I can go with that, we're doing an all right job, even though we didn't as a couple. But I think when there are moments when you're tired, a lot of moments when you're tired, and I only have Clemmy once a week, as it were. I mean, if you're separated like I am, I think as long as you can always try to keep your side of the street clean, as I've always said to people, with whether it's divorce or whatever it is, always remain cool. But at the same time, it's kind of a thing of I'm at pains to always make sure I tell Clemmy's mum maybe once a month, whenever it comes up, like, just thanks for all you do for her. She's great. And that's a lot her. I mean, on days on the earth, it's her more than me in many lots of ways. I just try and not, ruin what's there in lots of ways and try and make it better as much as I can.
Ryan, I think you raised some really valuable points. And I think for us, and Nick, I'm sure you feel the same, we don't want this to just be a podcast. People come, they listen to however long this podcast is, and then that's it. And then they feel like they're on their own again. So what kind of insight can you share for, or support, I guess, for men that are struggling with their mental health in the workplace?
I mean, what we've seen with us here as well is we've had things like there's various surveys go out, like pulse surveys, stuff which obviously to do with how you feel in general and things like that, which I think are important. Not over, sometimes you get asked certain things like that, and there's 1,000 questions and people don't want to do it. But I think the way that the way I quite like it is a survey that says at the bottom, who's this aimed at? Boss, whoever it may be, anyone that will listen. I always quite like that option because it's almost like, okay, and let's see what comes back with that, which this does. If you feel like it's something where you might be a really good listener, but it could help you say the things you want to say down the line. Maybe be the one who does say, let's have a little bit of I think they did something similar here where it's like, let's have a cup of tea and let's have a cup of coffee and chat about it. I think
coffee catch up.
Yeah, coffee catch up.
Yeah. Even if it's not even your line manager, even if it's like a group of people that you can connect with, and we've endless internet services where you can have a video, even if it's just saying like every other Wednesday I'm around between 12 and 12:45. I'm going to be on this Teams link. If you just want to come in, drop by, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, if you just want to listen to what other people are saying, or do you know what, I've got something I need to get off my chest.
Yeah, and Kally mentioned about the Samaritans, which is really interesting. I've had experience with the Samaritans as well, and it was real life changing for me. I felt like I didn't have anyone to speak to, talk to, but I found it really just to speak to a stranger, someone that I didn't even know. They don't know me. I don't know their voice. They don't know my voice. So my advice as well for the workplace would be for the employers to make sure that the employees are aware of all of this every day, because it's not just the work you do in the workplace mentally, it's also the work you do on your mental health outside of the workplace as well. That's super important, so that when you come back to work the next week, the next day, you feel even more connected with yourself mentally, so that you can continue moving forward and growing.
Yeah, definitely. At Blue Square, we also have our mental health first aiders. I think probably what we could do to make that even better is maybe we have a list of every single mental health first aider. So there'll be people on that list and people that you don't. And you can decide who you want to speak to.
Great, sure.
I think one thing I'd really like to highlight for our listeners out there is that we have a couple of resources for you if you are somebody that's potentially struggling with your mental health, or if you just want to find out more about maybe understanding why you're feeling the way that you're feeling. So, you can, the Hub of Hope is available. It's a mental health support network provided by Chasing the Stigma. JAAQ as well is a brand new mental health platform that you can go and find more information. We have the Samaritans. I personally use the Samaritans myself, and I can tell you to this day, without them I wouldn't be here. So it is very much a service that I would literally put my life on. Mind as well, which I know a lot of my friends have done a lot of charity work for Mind. I've donated for them. A lot of gaming streams people do for Mind, which is a big one. And of course the Calming Zone as well.
100%.
Thank you so much for joining us, Ryan.
Honestly, it's been a pleasure, anytime.
Nick, as always, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, listeners, for this incredible episode on men's mental health. We'll see you in the next one.